everything I left behind. But you can't ever really run from your past, can you? The phone rang, and it was my brother, Sweet. He told me the news that shattered my world. Our mom, Beverly Johnson, she was gone, killed in a drive-by. I knew right then I had to go back. I had to go home to Los Santos, back to Grove Street. I packed my bags, got on a plane, and landed right back in the middle of the mess I tried so hard to escape. It wasn't a choice, not really. It was family calling me back. The moment my taxi rolled onto Grove Street, I knew things were bad. Worse than I could have imagined. Our old rivals, the Ballas, were everywhere. Their purple colors were painted all over our turf. Our own set, the Grove Street families, was a shadow of its former self. Sweet was holding on by a thread, trying to keep the family together. My sister Kendall was dating some dude from a rival Barrios gang. And then there was Ryder and Big Smoke, my old homies. They seemed happy to see me, but something felt off. Everyone was just trying to survive, and the bonds that once made us strong felt like they were about to snap. Before I could even settle in, trouble found me. It always does. Officers Tenpenny, Pulaski, and Hernandez, the crooked cops from Crash, they pulled me over before I even got home. They knew I was back and saw me as their new puppet. They framed me for the murder of another cop, Officer Pendlebury. And just like that, they had me under their thumb. They told me I had to do what they said, or they'd pin it all on me. I was trapped. Back in Los Santos for less than an hour, and already I was tangled up in a web of corruption, forced to do their dirty work while trying to help my own family. So I got back to work for the Grove. We started small, taking back our territory block by block. Sweet was all about respect, about keeping the drug dealers out and protecting our own. I was with him, 100%. We hit back at the Ballas, we sabotaged their operations, and for a little while it felt like old times. It felt like we were making a difference, like we could actually bring Grove Street back to its glory days. We were united again, or so I thought. We were brothers in arms, fighting for our home, but a storm was brewing, one that I never saw coming. We were on top of the world, or at least on top of Los Santos. We planned a huge move to take out the Ballas once and for all, meeting under the Mulholland intersection. It was supposed to be our biggest victory, but it was a trap. The Ballas were waiting for us, armed to the teeth. The cops, led by Tenpenny, showed up right in the middle of the firefight. They arrested Sweet, leaving him to rot in prison. And that's when the truth hit me like a bullet. Big Smoke and Ryder, my own friends, my day ones, they had sold us out. They were working with the Ballas and Tenpenny all along. Tenpenny didn't kill me. That would have been too easy. Instead, he threw me in the back of his car and drove me out to the middle of nowhere. Whetstone, they called it. The countryside. He dumped me there with a warning, stay out of Los Santos, or he'd make sure Sweet suffered inside. I was alone, exiled from my home, with my brother in jail and my family scattered. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Smoke and Ryder had destroyed everything we built, all for money and power. I had nothing left but the clothes on my back and a burning need for revenge. Out in the sticks, I had to lay low. I met Kendall's boyfriend's cousin, Cesar Villalpando. He was a good guy, loyal. He showed me the proof about Smoke and Ryder before the big shootout, but I was too late to stop it. I also met this weird, paranoid hippie lady named The Truth. He had me doing all sorts of crazy stuff, like stealing a combine harvester from some local farmers. Then there was Catalina, Cesar's cousin. She was wild, unpredictable, and pulled me into a string of robberies across the countryside. It was a strange time, a complete 180 from the gang life in the city, but it kept me alive and it kept me busy. My time in the Badlands was tough, but it taught me a thing or two. I learned to rely on myself, to adapt to new situations far from the concrete jungle I knew. It wasn't about colors or turf anymore, it was about pure survival. Every weird job and every dangerous race hardened me. It gave me new skills and introduced me to people I never would have met otherwise. While Smoke and Ryder were getting rich off their betrayal back in Los Santos, I was out in the dirt, getting stronger, getting smarter, and planning my eventual return. They thought they got rid of me, but they only made me more determined. My journey eventually took me north to San Fierro. It was a whole different world from Los Santos, full of steep hills, cable cars, and a vibe I wasn't used to. Thanks to The Truth, I won a deed to a rundown garage in a race. It wasn't much, but it was a start. It was a place to build something new. Cesar, Kendall, and The Truth came with me, and together we started to make a plan. San Fierro was also where I found out who was supplying Big Smoke with his drugs, the Loco Syndicate. My mission became clear. I had to take them down piece by piece to cut off Smoke's power at the source. This is where I met some real allies. I hooked up with a blind triad leader named Woozy Moo, or Woozy as we called him. He was cool, calm, and ran the Mountain Cloud Boys. Despite not being able to see, he was one of the sharpest people I'd ever met. We became partners, and eventually, good friends. Through Woozy and his crew, I started to dismantle the Loco Syndicate. I also had to work with some shady characters like Jizzy B, a pimp who was part of the syndicate. I played along, gathered intel, and waited for the right moment to strike them down from the inside. After a lot of undercover work and some explosive action, we took out the leaders of the Loco Syndicate, Jizzy, T-Bone Mendez, and their mysterious boss, Mike Terreno. Or so I thought. After blowing up his helicopter, Terreno contacted me. Turns out, he was a government agent and he wasn't dead. He forced me to do a bunch of dangerous, top-secret missions for him out in the desert near Las Venturas. He promised that if I helped him, he would use his influence to get Sweet out of prison. It was another case of being under someone's thumb, but this time there was a real prize at the end of the line. Working for Terreno led me right to the bright lights of Las Venturas. Woozy had a plan to open a casino, the Four Dragons, to compete with the mob-run Caligula's Palace. He made me a partner. This was a whole new level of operation. We weren't just taking over street corners anymore. We were planning a heist on a major mob casino. We put together a crew, cased the joint, and pulled off an incredible robbery. We walked away with millions. In Venturas, I learned about business, strategy, and how to operate in a world of high stakes. I was a long way from the kid who just got off the plane in Los Santos. With the casino heist money in our pockets and Terreno finally making good on his promise, the time came. Sweet was released from prison. I went to pick him up expecting a happy reunion. But Sweet wasn't impressed with my new life, my money, or my businesses in San Fierro and Las Venturas. He said I'd forgotten where I came from. He wanted to go straight back to Grove Street, back to the hood that was now completely run by the Ballas and flooded with Smoke's crack cocaine. He was right. We had unfinished business. It was time to go home and take back what was ours, for real this time. Returning to Los Santos was like stepping back into a war zone. We had to start from scratch all over again. We rallied the few old-school Grove Street members who were left and began the hard work of reclaiming our turf. It was a bloody and difficult fight. We pushed the dealers out, painted over the Bala tags with our green, and took back the streets one by one. It was just like before, but this time was different. I was different. I had new skills, new resources, and the experience of everything I had been through. We weren't just kids fighting for a block anymore. We were soldiers reclaiming our kingdom. Finally, we took the fight to the top. I confronted Big Smoke in his fortified crack palace. It was a sad end. He was my boy, my friend, but he chose the wrong path. He admitted he got caught up in the money and power, and in the end, I had no choice but to take him down. Just as it was over, Tenpenny showed up for one last showdown. He tried to get away in a fire truck, leading me on a wild chase through the city, but his luck ran out. He crashed right in the heart of Grove Street and died from his injuries. Justice, in its own twisted way, was finally served. With Tenpenny and Smoke gone, and our turf back under our control, a new era began for the Johnson family and Grove Street. The riots that had torn the city apart finally ended. We were all together in the Johnson house. Me, Sweet, Kendall, Cesar, The Truth, and even Macker and the guys from my Venturas crew. We weren't just a gang anymore. We were a sprawling, successful organization with businesses all over the state. Looking back on it all, the betrayal, the exile, the crazy journey, it all made me who I am. It made us stronger. We went through hell, but we came out the other side, finally in control of our own destiny.